Social groups are another external factor. Social groups live in similar geographic settings. Southerners, urban black are examples of social groups. Social groups tend to share similar physical attributes, for example, Generation X. That means that social groups often fall along clear age lines. Since we tend to socialize with people like ourselves, if you remember back to our discussion on noise, then the people around us tend to share similar physical attributes. The consumption patterns of preteen girls tend to cross class boundaries. Now, these factors can often merge into a single powerful influence. For example, a bounded culture that shares class characteristics and is also a social group can be a powerful motivator. It can have great impact on people. This explains the power of gangs or cliques or peer pressure. The appeal of bounded cultures that have formed social groups is so strong, mainstream marketers use these images in their ads. And here's a good example from Sony for PlayStation. Another external factor is the reference group. These are groups of people with shared interest. Fellow students, for example, is a reference group. You might use the opinion of the students in your class to purchase things. Now, this crosses class boundaries, this crosses social boundaries, this crosses age boundaries. It's the shared interest that draws this group together. Gamers are an example of a reference group. My son, as I mentioned earlier, plays a strategy game called Warhammer 40K. And every weekend I take him down to the local gaming store where they've got tables set up and people are playing Warhammer. Most of the people who play that game are men in their middle ages, yet they accept him as part of that reference group. He asks questions about Warhammer, they share tips, even though he does not belong to their social class, he doesn't belong to their demographic class, he doesn't belong to their bounded subculture, he doesn't belong to their social group, but they share a bond, and that bond is their reference group, people who enjoy Warhammer 40K. The final factor that we're going to talk about is family and friends. Family would be your relatives and the people living together in your household. For example, 80% of sons vote like their fathers. The majority of women in their 20s purchase the same feminine products as their mother. This ad for 3 generations of Ivory soap shows the influence of households. The influence of people in your family is very, very strong. Word of mouth advertising is extremely powerful. When you hear about something from a person you trust, from someone in your reference group of friends, it can be very motivating. That's why movies rely so heavily on word of mouth. If your friend sees a movie and recommends that you see it, there's a good chance that you will. In the next part, we'll take a look at the internal forces influencing consumption.